The arrival. The night sky above New Mexico erupted in a dazzling display of lights, unlike anything ever witnessed on Earth. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, lead astronomer at the Arecibo Observatory, watched in awe as the phenomenon unfolded on her monitors. What had started as an unusual radio signal had transformed into a full-blown cosmic spectacle. "Holy shit," she whispered, her eyes wide with disbelief. "Jenkins, are you seeing this?" Her assistant, a lanky grad student named Tom Jenkins, nodded wordlessly, his face illuminated by the flickering screens. They watched as a massive object, easily the size of a small moon, decelerated into Earth's orbit with impossible grace. Elena's fingers flew across her keyboard, capturing every scrap of data she could. "It's artificial," she breathed. "We're not alone." Within hours, the news had spread across the globe. Governments scrambled to respond, militaries went on high alert, and the public oscillated between excitement and terror. As dawn broke over the United Nations headquarters in New York, an emergency session was called. Dr. Rodriguez found herself thrust into the spotlight, briefing world leaders on humanity's first confirmed contact with an extraterrestrial civilization. "The vessel appears to be of immense technological sophistication," she explained, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "Its method of propulsion and the materials used in its construction are beyond our current understanding." "But what do they want?" The question came from the U.S. President, her face etched with concern. Elena took a deep breath. "We don't know, Madam President. They haven't attempted communication yet." As if on cue, every electronic device in the room, smartphones, tablets, even the large display screens, flickered to life. A face appeared, vaguely humanoid but unmistakably alien. Its skin was a pale blue, with intricate patterns that seemed to shift and flow. Large, dark eyes regarded the assembled humans with an unreadable expression. "People of Earth," the alien spoke, its voice a melodious hum that seemed to bypass their ears and resonate directly in their minds. "We are the Zarkol. We have journeyed far to reach your world." The room erupted in a flurry of whispers and gasps. Elena felt a chill run down her spine. This was it, the moment that would change human history forever. The alien continued, "We come seeking knowledge and exchange. Your world has captured our interest. We propose a meeting of minds to share in the vast tapestry of the cosmos." As the initial shock wore off, diplomats and scientists alike began to prepare for humanity's first official meeting with an alien race. Elena found herself at the center of it all, working tirelessly to decipher the Zarkol's advanced mathematics and physics. Weeks passed in a blur of activity. A delegation was chosen, a carefully selected group of Earth's brightest minds and most skilled negotiators. Elena was among them, her expertise in astrophysics deemed crucial for the interactions to come. The day of the meeting arrived. A sleek shuttle descended from the Zarkol mothership, touching down in a specially prepared area just outside New York City. Elena stood with the other delegates, her heart pounding as the ship's door opened with a soft hiss. The Zarkol that emerged were tall and graceful, their movements fluid and precise. Up close, Elena could see that the patterns on their skin were actually tiny iridescent scales that shimmered with each movement. Their leader, introduced as High Emissary Zarthal, approached the human delegation. "Greetings," Zarthal said, bowing slightly. "We are honored to meet with you face to face." What followed was a whirlwind of cultural exchange and scientific discussion. The Zarkol shared glimpses of their advanced technology, clean energy sources, medical breakthroughs, and faster-than-light travel. In return, humanity offered its art, music, and the rich tapestry of Earth's biodiversity. Elena found herself in deep conversations with the Zarkol scientists, her mind reeling from the concepts they casually discussed. "Your understanding of quantum mechanics is impressive," she said, struggling to find the right words. A Zarkol named Kellinan tilted its head, the scales on its neck flashing a deep purple. "We have had many millennia to study the universe," it replied. Your species shows remarkable progress for its young age." As the days passed, Alina couldn't shake a growing sense of unease. The Zarkol were unfailingly polite, but there was something in their manner, a certain aloofness, perhaps, that niggled at her scientist's instincts. During a private moment with Dr. Yuki Tanaka, a renowned xenobiologist, Alina voiced her concerns. "Don't you think it's strange?" she whispered. "They're sharing all this knowledge, but they've asked for so little in return." Yuki nodded slowly. "I've been thinking the same thing. It's almost as if they already know everything about us," Alina finished. Their conversation was interrupted by a commotion near the main conference area. They rushed over to find a crowd gathering around one of the Zarkol delegates, who appeared to be in distress. Its scales were flashing rapidly, cycling through a rainbow of colors. "What's happening?" Alina asked, pushing her way forward. The Zarkol's dark eyes fixed on her, and for a moment she saw something there. Fear, pain. Before she could process it, the alien collapsed, its body convulsing. Chaos erupted as human and Zarkol medical teams rushed to help. In the confusion, Alina noticed something strange. As the stricken Zarkol was lifted onto a stretcher, its skin seemed to ripple. For just a split second, the elegant alien form seemed to melt away, revealing something altogether different underneath. Alina blinked, and the moment was gone. The Zarkol was rushed away, leaving behind a crowd of confused and concerned delegates. That night, unable to sleep, Alina pored over the data they had collected on the Zarkol physiology. Something wasn't adding up. The energy readings, the cellular structure, it all seemed just a little too perfect, too similar to Earth life in some ways and too alien in others. A knock on her door startled her out of her thoughts. She opened it to find Yuki, his face pale and drawn. "Alina," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, "I need to show you something." He led her to his makeshift lab, where a holographic display showed a complex molecular structure rotating slowly in the air. "This is a sample I managed to obtain from the Zarkol who collapsed," Yuki explained. "I've been running analyses all night." Alina leaned in, her brow furrowed. "What am I looking at?" Yuki took a deep breath. "It's not entirely alien," he said. "There are elements here that are distinctly Earth-based, specifically human." Alina felt her blood run cold. "What are you saying, Yuki?" "I'm saying," he replied, his voice grim, "that I don't think the Zarkol are what they claim to be. This isn't first contact, Alina. It's something else entirely." As the implications of Yuki's discovery sank in, alarms began to blare throughout the complex. Outside, the night sky lit up once again, not with the peaceful arrival of a single ship, but with the ominous glow of an armada descending upon the Earth. The Zarkol facade was crumbling, and humanity was about to face a threat beyond their worst nightmares. As Alina raced to alert the authorities, she realized with a sinking heart that the real invasion had only just begun. The invasion begins. The dawn broke over a world forever changed. The Zarkol's true intentions became horrifyingly clear as their ships descended upon Earth's major cities. Gone were the elegant blue-skinned diplomats. In their place came nightmarish creatures, their forms constantly shifting and adapting, making them nearly impossible to target. Alina Rodriguez found herself in the heart of the chaos, running through the streets of New York with Dr. Yuki Tanaka. The city was in pandemonium, with people fleeing in all directions as alien craft strafed the skyscrapers. "We need to get to the UN building," Alina shouted over the cacophony of screams and explosions. "They need to know what we've discovered." Yuki nodded grimly, ducking as debris rained down from a nearby building. "If we can make it there alive," he muttered. As they ran, Alina's mind raced. The Zarkol, or whatever they really were, had played their hand perfectly. They had lulled Earth into a false sense of security, gathering intelligence and probing for weaknesses. Now, with their true nature revealed, they struck with overwhelming force. A piercing shriek filled the air. and Alina looked up to see a Zarkol fighter diving towards them. Its form was grotesque, a twisted amalgamation of organic and mechanical parts that seemed to defy the laws of physics. "Look out!" Yuki yelled, pulling Alina into a narrow alley just as the fighter's energy beam scorched the pavement where they had been standing. They pressed themselves against the wall, breathing heavily. Alina's eyes widened as she saw the destruction the beam had wrought. The concrete had not just been damaged, it seemed to be changing, the molecular structure warping in ways that defied explanation. "My God," she whispered, "they're weapons. They're not just destroying. They're terraforming." Yuki nodded grimly. "Altering our world to suit their needs. We're not just facing an invasion. We're facing colonization." They made their way through the city, witnessing scenes of horror and heroism. Civilians helping each other amidst the chaos. First responders fighting desperately against an enemy they couldn't comprehend. The sky was filled with dogfights as Earth's air forces engaged the alien craft, but it was clear they were outmatched. Finally, they reached the UN headquarters, or what was left of it. The iconic building was partially collapsed, its walls scarred by alien weapons fire. A makeshift command center had been set up in the basement, where world leaders and military commanders were trying to coordinate a response. Alina and Yuki pushed their way through the crowd of shell-shocked officials and frantic aides. They found the U.S. president huddled with her top generals, her face ashen as she received reports of the global devastation. "Madam President," Alina called out, her voice hoarse from the smoke and dust. "We have critical information about the invaders." The president looked up, recognition flickering in her eyes. "Dr. Rodriguez, what are you doing here?" Quickly, Alina and Yuki explained their findings, the Zarkol's true nature, their adaptive abilities, and the terrifying implications of their weaponry. "So you're telling me," the president said slowly, "that these things can not only change their own form but alter the very fabric of our world?" Yuki nodded. "Their technology is beyond anything we've ever encountered. It's as if they can manipulate matter at a quantum level." A general spoke up, his voice gruff. "That explains why our conventional weapons have been so ineffective. We hit them, and they just reform." The implications sank in, casting a pall of despair over the room. How could they fight an enemy that could adapt to any attack, that could turn their own world against them? Suddenly, the ground shook violently. Dust rained down from the ceiling as the sound of massive impacts echoed above. "They're targeting us specifically," the president realized. "We need to evacuate now." As they rushed to escape the crumbling building, Alina's mind was racing. There had to be a way to fight back, some weakness they could exploit. The Zarkol's ability to adapt was incredible, but it had to have limits. They emerged into a changed world. The New York skyline was barely recognizable, with alien structures already beginning to rise amidst the rubble of human civilization. The air itself seemed different, thicker somehow, with an odd, shimmering quality. "Look," Yuki pointed to the harbor, where the water was changing color, taking on an otherworldly hue. "They're altering the chemical composition of the oceans." Alina watched in horror as fish leaped from the water, desperately trying to escape the changing environment. Birds fell from the sky, unable to breathe the altered air. The ecosystem was collapsing in real time before their eyes. As they made their way to a military evacuation point, Alina's scientific mind couldn't help but analyze what she was seeing. The Zarkol's terraforming was incredibly fast, but it wasn't instantaneous. There was a process, a progression to the changes. "Yuki," she said suddenly, grabbing his arm, "I think I see a pattern. The changes, they're radiating outward from specific points, like a virus spreading." Yuki's eyes widened as he grasped her meaning. "You're right. It's not uniform, which means it can be tracked," Alina finished. "And if it can be tracked, it can be fought," Yuki concluded. They shared a moment of hope amidst the chaos. It wasn't much, but it was a start, a potential weakness in the seemingly invincible enemy. As they boarded a military transport, the president approached them. "Dr. Rodriguez, Dr. Tanaka," she said, her voice filled with grim determination. "I'm establishing a task force to find a way to stop these bastards. I want you both on it." Elena nodded, her jaw set. "We'll do whatever it takes, Madam President." As the transport lifted off, carrying them away from the ruins of New York, Elena looked out the window at the devastation below. The Zarkol invasion was spreading rapidly, but humanity wasn't beaten yet. They had faced extinction before, from ice ages, from plagues, from their own destructive tendencies, and had always found a way to survive. Now, they faced their greatest challenge yet. But as Elena watched a group of civilians working together to rescue people trapped in a collapsed building, she felt a surge of pride and determination. Humanity's greatest strength had always been its adaptability, its creativity in the face of adversity. The Zarkol might be able to change their forms, but humans could change their minds, could innovate and overcome in ways that no alien intelligence could predict. The transport banked, heading towards a hidden government facility in the Rocky Mountains. As the burning cities faded from view, Elena turned to Yuki, her eyes blazing with purpose. "We're going to find a way to beat them," she said firmly, "no matter what it takes." Yuki nodded, his face set with equal resolve. "Together," he agreed. As they flew towards an uncertain future, the fate of humanity hanging in the balance, Elena knew that the real battle was just beginning. The Zarkol had made a critical error in underestimating human resilience and ingenuity. Now, it was time to show them exactly what humanity was capable of when pushed to the brink. The invasion had begun, but so too had the resistance. And in labs and bunkers, in ruined cities and remote outposts, humans were already adapting, already planning, already finding ways to fight back. The war for Earth had only just started, and humanity wasn't about to go down without a fight. The resistance forms. The hidden facility deep within the Rocky Mountains buzzed with frenetic energy. What had once been a Cold War-era bunker was now humanity's last, best hope for survival. Scientists, military personnel, and civilians from all walks of life worked side by side, united in their desperate mission to find a way to stop the Zarkol invasion. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood before a holographic display, her eyes bloodshot from lack of sleep. The 3D model before her showed the spread of the Zarkol's terraforming effect across the globe. Red areas indicated fully transformed regions, while yellow showed areas in transition. The amount of red was growing at an alarming rate. "It's like watching a cancer spread," murmured Dr. Yuki Tanaka, who stood beside her. His usually immaculate appearance was disheveled, his lab coat stained with coffee. Elena nodded grimly. "But even cancer has weaknesses. We just need to find this one." Their work was interrupted by the arrival of General Sarah Hawthorne, the stern-faced leader of what remained of Earth's military forces. "Doctors," she said, her voice clipped. "What progress can you report?" Elena took a deep breath. "We've managed to isolate some key characteristics of the Zarkol terraforming process. It's not just changing the physical environment. It's altering the fundamental laws of physics in localized areas." Yuki stepped in. "We believe they're creating bubble universes, small pockets where the laws of their home dimension apply. It's why our weapons are so ineffective. In these altered spaces, they simply don't work the same way." The general's brow furrowed. "So how the hell are we supposed to fight that?" Elena's eyes lit up with a fierce determination. "By using it against them. General, we need volunteers. People willing to enter these altered zones and gather data. It's dangerous, but it's our best chance at understanding how to counter their technology." Hawthorne nodded slowly. "I'll put out the call. But make it quick, doctors. We're losing ground every hour." As the general left, Elena turned back to the holographic display. She zoomed in on a particular hotspot, a small town in Colorado that was right on the edge of a transformation zone. "This is where we'll start," she said. "If we can observe the process as it happens, we might be able to find a way to reverse it." Yuki looked skeptical. Elena, you know how dangerous that is. The transformation process is unpredictable. Anyone who goes in might not come back. Elena met his gaze steadily. I know. That's why I'm going myself. Before Yuki could protest, alarms blared throughout the facility. Red emergency lights bathed the room as a voice came over the intercom. Attention all personnel. Tsar Coal forces detected approaching the mountain. This is not a drill. Prepare for immediate evacuation. Chaos erupted as people rushed to secure vital research and equipment. Elena and Yuki worked frantically to download their data onto portable drives. We can't lose this, Elena said through gritted teeth. It's too important. Suddenly, a massive explosion rocked the facility. The lights flickered, and dust rained down from the ceiling. Elena stumbled, nearly dropping the precious hard drive. Yuki caught her arm, steadying her. We need to go now, he shouted over the din of alarms and panic shouts. They ran through the corridors, dodging falling debris and helping others along the way. The mountain shook with repeated impacts as the Zarkol bombarded the exterior, searching for a way in. As they neared the emergency exit, a horrifying sight stopped them in their tracks. The massive blast doors were warping, the metal twisting and bubbling as if it were melting. But it wasn't melting. It was changing, transforming into something alien. They'd breached the outer defenses, Yuki said, his voice filled with dread. The terraforming effect is penetrating the mountain. Elena's mind raced. They were trapped, with the Zarkol's reality warping effect closing in on all sides. But then, an idea struck her, a desperate, possibly suicidal idea. Yuki, she said, grabbing his arm. We need to go through it. His eyes widened in shock. What? Elena, that's insane. We have no idea what it'll do to us. Exactly, she replied, her voice steady despite her pounding heart. This is our chance to gather first-hand data on the transformation process. We might not get another opportunity like this. Yuki hesitated for a moment, then nodded grimly. You're right, but we do this together. They turned to the small group of survivors who had gathered behind them. Elena addressed them quickly. The exit is compromised. Our only chance is to push through the transformation zone. It's risky, but it's our best shot at survival and at finding a way to fight back. Who's with us? To their surprise, every hand went up. Humanity's indomitable spirit shone through even in this darkest hour. Elena took a deep breath, clutching the hard drive to her chest. All right, let's go. They approached the writhing, shifting mass that had once been the blast doors. The air around it shimmered and warped, reality itself seeming to bend. Elena reached out, her fingers trembling, and touched the surface. The sensation was indescribable. It felt like her entire being was being unraveled and rewoven. Colors she had never seen before exploded in her vision. She heard impossible sounds and felt textures that shouldn't exist. And then suddenly, they were through. The world on the other side was alien and terrifying. The laws of physics seemed to be mere suggestions here. Gravity fluctuated wildly, causing objects to float and then crash down randomly. Light bent in impossible ways, creating shadows that moved of their own accord. Elena gasped for breath, her lungs struggling to process the altered air. Beside her, Yuki and the others were similarly disoriented. But they were alive, and more importantly, they were gathering crucial data. As they stumbled through this warped version of reality, Elena's scientific mind kicked into overdrive. She observed everything, noting how their own bodies seemed to be partially adapting to this new environment. It was as if their human DNA was being rewritten on the fly, allowing them to survive in this alien world. Yuki, she called out, her voice sounding strange in the altered atmosphere. Are you seeing this? Our bodies, they're changing. Yuki nodded, his eyes wide with a mixture of fear and scientific curiosity. It's like we're evolving in real time, adapting to survive. A realization struck Elena like a thunderbolt. That's it, she exclaimed. That's how we fight them. We don't try to stop the transformation. We guide it. We find a way to control our own evolution. As if in response to her epiphany, the world around them shuddered. The Zarkol were closing in, their presence warping reality even further. But now, armed with new understanding and the beginnings of a plan, Alina felt a surge of hope. They needed to get this information back to what remained of Earth's scientists. If they could harness this adaptive ability, if they could find a way to direct their own transformation, they might stand a chance against the Zarkol. "We need to keep moving," Alina said, her voice filled with newfound determination. "We need to find a way back to our own reality and share what we've learned." As they pressed on through the twisted landscape, Alina's mind raced with possibilities. The Zarkol had brought this transformative power to Earth, thinking it would be their ultimate weapon. But in doing so, they had inadvertently given humanity the key to its own salvation. The resistance had begun in earnest. In this warped alien world, the seeds of humanity's comeback were being sown. The Zarkol thought they were reshaping Earth to suit their needs, but they had underestimated the adaptability, the sheer tenacity of the human spirit. As they navigated the ever-shifting terrain, searching for a way back to their own dimension, Alina allowed herself a small smile. The invasion had begun as a nightmare, but it was quickly becoming the crucible in which humanity's greatest strengths would be forged. The war was far from over, but for the first time since the Zarkol revealed their true nature, there was real hope. Humanity was adapting, evolving, preparing to fight back in ways the invaders could never have anticipated. The resistance was no longer just forming, it was transforming, becoming something new and powerful. And as Alina led her small band of survivors through the alien landscape, she knew that this was just the beginning. The real battle, the fight for the very nature of reality itself, was about to begin. The counterattack. The journey back through the twisted reality of the Zarkol's terraformed zone was a harrowing experience. Alina, Yuki, and their small band of survivors struggled against the ever-shifting laws of physics, their bodies continuously adapting to the alien environment. By the time they stumbled back into an untransformed area of the Rocky Mountains, they were changed in ways they were only beginning to understand. Alina looked at her hands, watching in fascination as her skin shimmered with an iridescent quality before settling back to its normal appearance. "We've brought something back with us," she murmured, her scientific curiosity overriding her fear. Yuki nodded, his eyes wide. "Our DNA has been fundamentally altered. We're not entirely human anymore, Alina." As they made their way to the nearest resistance outpost, a hidden facility built into an abandoned mine, Alina's mind raced with the implications of their transformation. They had survived direct exposure to the Zarkol's reality warping effect. More than that, they had adapted to it. This could be the key to fighting back. The outpost was a hive of activity, filled with haggard survivors and determined resistance fighters. As soon as they arrived, Alina and Yuki were ushered into a makeshift lab, where they began sharing their findings with the team of scientists stationed there. Dr. Maya Chen, a brilliant geneticist, listened intently as Alina and Yuki recounted their experience. "So you're saying that human DNA has the potential to adapt to the Zarkol's altered reality?" she asked, her eyes gleaming with excitement. Alina nodded. "Not just adapt, but potentially harness it. We need to find a way to control the transformation, to direct our evolution in a way that allows us to fight back." For weeks, they worked tirelessly, analyzing the changes in their own DNA and developing theories on how to replicate and control the process. Progress was slow and fraught with setbacks, but gradually they began to understand the mechanisms at work. One day, as Alina was poring over genetic sequencing data, she noticed something strange. "Yuki, Maya, come look at this," she called out, her voice trembling with excitement. They gathered around her computer screen, studying the complex patterns of DNA. "It's like our genes are learning," Yuki said in awe. "They're not just randomly mutating. They're adapting with purpose. Maya's eyes widened. It's as if exposure to the Zarkol's terraforming has awakened some dormant potential in our DNA. We're evolving at an accelerated rate, but with a level of control that shouldn't be possible. Elena felt a surge of hope. This is it, she said firmly. This is how we fight back. We don't try to stop the Zarkol's transformation of our world. We embrace it and make it our own. The next few months were a blur of intense research, dangerous experiments, and breakthroughs that pushed the boundaries of human understanding. They developed a method to safely expose volunteers to controlled doses of the Zarkol's reality-warping energy, gradually awakening their latent adaptive abilities. As news of their progress spread, more survivors made the perilous journey to their hidden facility. Each new arrival brought fresh perspectives and skills to their cause. The resistance was growing, not just in numbers, but in capability. Elena stood before a group of newly arrived volunteers, her eyes blazing with determination. "What we're about to do will change you forever," she said, her voice carrying through the crowded room. "But it's our best hope for saving our world. We're not just fighting the Zarkol. We're fighting for the right to determine our own evolution, our own future." The training process was grueling. Volunteers learned to control their newfound abilities, to shape the reality around them in small ways. Some could manipulate gravity, others could alter the properties of materials with a touch. Each person's abilities were unique, a reflection of their individual adaptations to the Zarkol's transformed world. As their forces grew stronger, the resistance began to launch small-scale attacks against Zarkol outposts. Each mission was a test of their new abilities, a chance to gather more data and refine their techniques. During one such mission, Elena found herself face to face with a Zarkol warrior. The alien's form shifted constantly, its body a swirling mass of tentacles and crystalline structures. But Elena stood her ground, drawing on her newfound powers. With a thought, she altered the air around the Zarkol, making it denser, harder for the creature to move through. The alien's movements became sluggish, its adaptive abilities struggling against this unexpected attack. Elena pressed her advantage, focusing her will on the very fabric of reality around them. The ground beneath the Zarkol began to warp and twist, trapping the creature in a localized bubble of altered physics. For a moment, Elena locked eyes with the alien. In its gaze, she saw something she never expected: fear. The Zarkol, for all their advanced technology and reality-shaping powers, had never encountered a species that could match them on their own terms. As the alien struggled futilely against its prison, Elena felt a mix of triumph and sadness. "We didn't want this war," she said softly, "but we will finish it." With a final burst of concentration, she collapsed the bubble of altered reality, erasing the Zarkol from existence. The effort left her drained, but filled with a grim sense of accomplishment. They had proven that humanity could fight back on equal footing. Back at the resistance base, Elena shared the results of their mission with the War Council. General Hawthorne, her face etched with new scars, but her eyes burning with fierce determination, listened intently. "So it's working," the general said, a hint of hope creeping into her voice. "We can hurt them." Elena nodded. "More than that, we can beat them. But we need to scale up our efforts. Fast." Yuki stepped forward, pulling up a holographic display of the globe. Red areas of Zarkol control still dominated the map, but small pockets of blue, resistance-held territories, were beginning to appear. "We've developed a way to broadcast our DNA-altering treatment over large areas," he explained. "It's not as controlled as our direct method, but it will allow us to awaken the adaptive abilities in a much larger portion of the surviving human population." Maya chimed in, her voice filled with excitement. "Think of it as a beneficial version of their terraforming wave. We'll be transforming humanity, giving everyone the tools to fight back." The implications were staggering. They were proposing to fundamentally alter the entire human race, to force an evolutionary leap on a global scale. The ethical considerations were enormous, but faced with the alternative of extinction, the choice was clear: General Hawthorne stood, her decision made. "Do it," she commanded. Humanity stood at evolutionary crossroads before. It's time to take the next step. The following weeks were a frenzy of activity as they prepared for their boldest move yet. Resistance cells around the world worked to set up broadcasting stations, hidden in the shadows of Zarkol-controlled territories. It would be a synchronized global effort, a last-ditch attempt to turn the tide of the war. On the eve of their great gambit, Alina stood atop a cliff overlooking a valley that had once been a bustling city. Now, it was a twisted landscape of alien structures and reality-warped terrain. The sight steeled her resolve. Yuki joined her, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. "Having second thoughts?" he asked gently. Alina shook her head. "No. What we're about to do, it's going to change everything. But it's our only choice. We adapt, or we die." As the sun set on the alien landscape, casting strange, shifting shadows across the valley, Alina felt a sense of finality. Tomorrow, they would launch their counterattack. They would awaken the sleeping potential in every surviving human, giving them the power to reshape reality itself. The Zarkol had come to Earth expecting to find an easy conquest. Instead, they had unknowingly created their own worst nightmare. A humanity reborn, evolved, and ready to fight for its right to exist. As darkness fell, Alina turned back towards the resistance base, her steps filled with purpose. The counterattack was about to begin, and with it, the next chapter in human evolution. Whatever the outcome, there was no turning back now. The future of Earth, of humanity itself, hung in the balance. The final stand. The dawn broke over a world poised on the brink of transformation. In hidden bunkers, mountaintop redoubts, and subterranean labs across the globe, resistance fighters prepared to activate the network of broadcast stations that would unleash humanity's evolutionary potential. Alina stood in the control room of their Rocky Mountain facility, her fingers hovering over the activation switch. Yuki and Maya flanked her, their faces a mixture of anticipation and trepidation. General Hawthorne's voice crackled over the comm system, linking them to resistance cells worldwide. "All stations report ready," the general announced, her voice tense but steady. "Dr. Rodriguez, the go-ahead is yours. May whatever gods are left protect us all." Alina took a deep breath, her mind flashing back to that fateful day when the Zarkol first revealed their true nature. How far they had come since then, how much they had lost, and how much they stood to gain or lose in the next few moments. "For Earth," Alina said softly, and pressed the switch. A low hum filled the air as the broadcast stations came to life. Across the planet, waves of energy pulsed outward, carrying with them the carefully engineered genetic codes that would awaken humanity's latent potential. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, reports began flooding in from around the world. In Zarkol-controlled cities, bewildered humans suddenly found themselves able to perceive the alien reality warping around them. In refugee camps and hidden communities, people discovered newfound abilities to manipulate their environment. But the Zarkol were quick to respond. They had not conquered countless worlds by being unprepared. As newly empowered humans began to push back against their oppressors, the aliens unleashed a devastating counterattack. The sky darkened as massive Zarkol ships descended, their reality-warping weapons tearing holes in the fabric of space-time itself. Entire cities were swallowed by swirling vortexes of altered physics, while others were transformed into nightmarish landscapes that defied comprehension. Alina and her team worked frantically to coordinate the global resistance. As reports flooded in, they began to see patterns in the chaos. "Look at this," Maya called out, pointing to a holographic display of North America. "The Zarkol attacks are concentrated on major population centers, but they're leaving corridors between them untouched." Yuki's eyes widened in realization. "They're trying to hurt us, to drag surviving humans into contained areas." Alina nodded grimly. "They're adapting their strategy. We need to do the same." She turned to General Hawthorne's holographic image. "General, we need to get word out to all resistance cells. Tell them to avoid the obvious escape routes. We need to go where the Zarkol aren't expecting us." As the battle raged across the globe, humanity began to unlock the true potential of their newfound abilities. In the ruins of Tokyo, a group of survivors learned to create pockets of altered reality where Zarkol weapons were useless. In the Amazon rainforest, indigenous tribes used their deep connection to the land to turn the altered ecosystem against the invaders. But for every victory, there were setbacks. The Zarkol's mastery of reality manipulation was still far beyond humanity's fledgling abilities. Entire resistance cells were wiped out in an instant, erased from existence by weapons that defied the laws of physics. Weeks turned into months as the war for Earth's future raged on. The planet itself was transformed, becoming a patchwork of realities, some recognizably Earth-like, others wholly alien. Humanity fought not just for survival, but for the right to define the very nature of their world. In the Rocky Mountain facility, Elena and her team worked tirelessly to unlock new aspects of their evolved abilities. They had discovered that by working in concert, humans could achieve feats of reality manipulation that rivaled the Zarkol's technology. "It's like we're tapping into some kind of collective consciousness," Elena explained to a group of resistance leaders. "The more of us work together, the stronger our abilities become." This discovery led to a new strategy. Instead of fighting the Zarkol head-on, resistance cells began to focus on large-scale, coordinated reality manipulations. They would reshape entire regions, turning Zarkol strongholds into inhospitable environments that even the aliens' adaptive abilities couldn't overcome. The tide of the war began to turn, but the cost was immense. Earth was becoming unrecognizable, a surreal patchwork of conflicting realities. And with each use of their newfound powers, humanity was changing, evolving further away from their original form. As the final battle approached, Elena stood atop a mountain that had once been part of the Rockies, but now floated in a sea of shimmering energy. The horizon was a kaleidoscope of realities, each one a testament to the war that had reshaped their world. Yuki joined her, his form flickering slightly as he adapted to the ever-changing environment. "The Zarkol have pulled back to their last stronghold," he reported. "They've concentrated all their forces in what used to be the Pacific Ocean. It's like nothing we've ever seen before, Elena. They've turned it into a reality forge, a place where they have absolute control over the nature of existence itself." Elena nodded, her face set with determination. "Then that's where we make our final stand. We bring every evolved human we can muster. It's time to end this, once and for all." The next day, as a sun that no longer resembled Earth's own rose over the twisted landscape, the massed forces of humanity gathered. They came from every corner of the transformed world, each bearing the marks of their evolutionary journey. Some floated on air, others shifted forms like living mercury. All were united in their purpose. Elena addressed the assembled forces, her voice carried across realities by sheer force of will. "Today, we fight not just for our survival, but for the very essence of what it means to be human. The Zarkol came to reshape our world in their image. Instead, we will show them the true power of human adaptability and determination. Together, we will reforge reality itself." With a mighty roar that shook the foundations of existence, the human forces surged forward. They clashed with the Zarkol in a battle that defied description, where the laws of physics were weapons and the fabric of reality itself was the battlefield. Elena found herself at the heart of the conflict, facing off against the Zarkol leader, a being of pure energy and endless shifting forms. As they struggled, each trying to impose their will on reality, Elena felt the collective consciousness of humanity flowing through her. In that moment, she understood the true nature of their evolution. It wasn't about gaining powers or adapting to a new environment. It was about reaching the next stage of human potential, a unity of mind and spirit that transcended physical form. With this realization came a surge of power unlike anything she had ever experienced. Elena reached out, not just with her own abilities, but with the combined will of every human being on the planet. She touched the very core of the reality forge, and with a thought, reshaped it. The Zarkol leader's form flickered and faded, unable to maintain coherence in the face of this newfound power. Around them, the alien forces began to crumble, their hold on Earth's reality slipping away. As the last of the Zarkol vanished, a wave of energy pulsed outward from the reality forge. It swept across the planet, guided by the collective will of humanity. Slowly, the patchwork of realities began to merge and stabilize. When it was over, Elena found herself standing on a beach, waves lapping gently at her feet. But it wasn't the Earth she had known before the invasion. This was something new, a world shaped by the combined experiences and desires of an evolved humanity. Yuki appeared beside her, his form now stable, but undeniably changed. "We did it," he said softly, awe in his voice. "We won." Elena nodded, looking out over the alien yet familiar landscape. "We did more than win, Yuki. We've been reborn." As survivors emerged from the reality storm, marveling at the new world around them, Elena realized that this was not an end, but a beginning. Humanity had faced its greatest challenge and emerged transformed. They had inherited the Zarkol's power to shape reality, but tempered it with human creativity, compassion, and spirit. The war was over, but the true journey was just beginning. As the architects of this new reality, they bore the responsibility of shaping a future that honored their past while embracing their new potential. Elena looked at her hands, watching the shimmer of reality-altering energy dance across her skin. The Zarkol had come to Earth seeking to remake it in their image. Instead, they had become the catalyst for humanity's next great leap forward. As the sun set on the first day of this new epoch, Elena felt a profound sense of hope. Whatever challenges lay ahead, humanity would face them together, armed with the greatest power in the universe, the ability to adapt, to change, and to shape their own destiny. The invasion was over. The evolution had just begun.